So for those of you that don't know, I teach a lot of different classes for agriculture, and these envelopes are for my Intro to Ag class, which is comprised of mostly ninth graders. It's basically meant for the beginning class for the lower level high school kids. So these envelopes here, I just got done stuffing and addressing and sticking stamps on them because I'm sending them out. They have seeds in them. So these are for the kids for their projects for the next month or so. They have to keep a log, start the seeds, research the needs of the seeds and their plants, and then transplant them outside. Back in the chicken coop right now. I'm collecting eggs. I've got an order that I need to reship, so I will talk a little bit more about chickens right now, specifically the laying chickens. So fertile eggs and eating eggs essentially are laid basically by the same chicken. The only difference is when I go through and I collect eggs, or even my husband when he goes and collects eggs, I go through them every night and separate the clean, cracked eggs, the ones that don't need to be washed, and I set those aside for my hatching egg orders. And I'll talk about that more in a second. So I separate them out initially. The clean ones have to stay for the hatching egg orders. So chickens are messy and disgusting creatures. So these are eggs that I just collected out of the nesting box. This is the real world here. This is what it looks like when chickens lay an egg in a nesting box and you have like 8 hens that prefer the same box. Now, in addition to selling eating eggs, we also sell fertile hatching eggs online on Amazon. And that's why I keep so many roosters around here. I've got quite a few of them. That one right there strutting around, that's a black copper Morans. And then I have an Australorp up here. I think I lose track of how many I actually have, but I think it's somewhere between 5 and 8 right now. I've got a few in the younger batch. You hear Sophie barking outside. She usually harasses the roosters because in the past we've had some that do try to be aggressive and attack us. So some people might ask, why do you need the clean eggs and why can't you wash them and then incubate out eggs? So when a chicken lays an egg, there's this thing around the outside of it, and obviously you can't see it when a chicken initially lays an egg, which if I ever get a chance and I catch one in a nesting box close to laying an egg, I will film it. But when the chicken lays the egg, there is this clear coating around the outside of it that's called the bloom, and it helps to protect the egg, keep bacteria out of it, and protect basically the developing embryo when you set it in the incubator or when you have a chicken that actually sets eggs. Most of my chickens aren't broody. So when you wash them, the bloom gets washed off with that, and in turn, like you probably know, at least if you ever go grocery shopping, that the eggs that you buy need to be refrigerated in order to be kept fresh. In the UK, though, that's not a standard procedure. So when you go in the grocery store, they're just sitting at room temperature, and if they have males housed with whatever female species it is that's laying those eggs could ideally be set in an incubator. And I do know, I've heard or read of stories of people that bought like quail eggs. In other countries, they eat quail eggs on a regular basis. In the United States, it's like absurd. Nobody even knows that quail really exists. So if you ever buy eggs in Europe, at least I've heard of this happening with like quail eggs, they don't actually refrigerate their eggs over there, or at least that's not like a normal thing. The USDA in the United States has, like, from whatever, people getting sick over the years. I mean, obviously, if there's manure on eggs, they probably should be washed because you have things like salmonella or other food-based illnesses that come from chickens because chickens are disgusting creatures. So an example, like this egg here, it's not, like, super clumped up with manure like some of the other eggs. I know it's kind of hard to see the way that it's focusing, but there's still enough on there that even though if I set this in the incubator and didn't wash it first, even if I set it in there, it could potentially introduce other bacteria to the eggs in the incubator. So when you set eggs in an incubator, or like if you ever decide that you want to do this at home for whatever reason, you want to make sure that you get as clean of eggs as possible. And for the kids that I have that are watching this, I think it was back in December. I did set a couple of October, I think. Breely brought in some duck eggs for me to put in the incubator with the chick eggs, and they didn't hatch. I don't even think that they really developed, and I think that part of the reason that they didn't develop was because they were coated in mud. I mean, it was in the fall, so it was a messy time anyway. So I did try to hatch out duck eggs another set before the school closed down, and I brought them home, but they didn't develop at all. I actually smashed all the eggs after the incubation time had passed where they should have hatched out. And it's always interesting to see where the chicks died in development and what could have potentially caused them to die, but the duck eggs didn't develop at all. And I didn't introduce her yet, but this is Sophie. This is our dog. She is an Australian cattle dog, also known as a blue heeler. She's got a personality. I'll probably talk more about that later or at some point when I talk about dogs and canines, but she's a fun dog. So for those of you that watched the first day, I think it was the first day that I started sharing stuff to my story. I had just cleaned the meat chicks, and I think that was Saturday or Sunday. And I just want to show you them right now because it's only been a couple of days and they are already disgusting, and I'm gonna have to clean them again probably tomorrow. So this is just a small idea of how gross these birds can actually be. And these are the types of birds that you eat in the grocery store. So when you go in and you buy a package of boneless, skinless chicken breasts, or you get a package of chicken wings or thighs or whatever it is that you buy, any type of chicken is normally produced from this white variety. So these really big, fast-growing chickens. And as they get bigger, they actually, they do, obviously, they're going to eat and drink more. And it's, even at this point, Reed is the one that's been taking care of him. Reed is my husband, if you don't know him, or Mr. Matrowski. If you're a student, I guess that's what you would call him. But these water, once they get out on pasture, they have to have 2 waterers that are actually larger than that, and usually every 12 hours we're filling them up. And the same thing with the food. So they go through, as they're growing, they go through so much food and water. For those of you that missed the memo, I brought home the school chinchillas. They're only here until, obviously, school's back in session, and I'm hoping that I won't get stuck with them for the summer. If you know nothing about chinchillas, know now that they take dust baths. They cannot get wet. You can't bathe them like a normal animal. They're rodents, so how many people actually give their rabbits a bath? I don't know. But they take dust baths. So if you get them wet, their fur can't dry out because it's so dense. And it will start like a mold or a fungus, and it's really hard to get rid of. These chinchillas are actually they're fur chewers, so I didn't realize this when I got them. I inherited them from the Pavilion FFA egg program, and after I got them, I thought maybe it was stress or some crazy thing of why their fur was falling out, and it's a genetic condition, and it's called fur chewing. So I am going to ask a question about chinchillas before I give too much information away. Here's another quick look at Roxy's babies. If you missed it, Roxy is this rabbit over here. She is the Cattaraugus Little Valley FFA female rabbit that we have. She came home with me when all of the chaos happened, and they've since been living here. She had her babies on March 28th, which was the same day that I had my baby. And they're almost a month old, so within the next week or so I'm going to be weaning them. Cattaraugus Little Valley kids, if anybody is interested in keeping one as a pet, let me know. They're not overly friendly because I don't have time to handle them with everything else I've got going on. So I won't be offended if you don't want any of them. I probably will end up marketing and selling them. I don't have cage space for them, so I need to get rid of them soon. So I'm walking down to the cow barn now just to check on the cows and see if the chickens laid any eggs down there. One word that I keep kind of throwing around is breed, and though I take for granted that a lot of people know what the the word breed means. For those of you that don't know, and I commonly compare this when I'm teaching my students to breeds of dogs, because everybody knows what a German Shepherd or a Rottweiler or a Chihuahua looks like. So the textbook definition of a breed is common characteristics of a set of animals, usually including frame, which is size, color, characteristics like personality, disposition. That's a fancy word for personality. So those all get lumped in usually when you're talking about certain breeds of animals, regardless if it's like dogs or cats or cows or sheep. You know, some of them are just genetically predisposed to certain behaviors or ways that they act around people, or their fight or flight senses, just because that's what their genetics tell them to do. Almost all of them were in here laying down, snoozing, catching a few Z's. So yesterday one of the questions I asked was, what is the gestation or length of time that a cow is pregnant for? And a few people got it right. I'm surprised a lot of people actually guessed 5 months. So 5 months is actually the gestation length for sheep or goats. It's somewhere around there. It's usually around 5 months, give or take like a week. Cows is actually 9 months. So they're more similar to people. And it also can depend on the breed of the animal, and it's not a perfect right at the 9-month mark. And just like people, cows can go overdue or have their babies early. This is what I mean by chickens destroying everything that you hold dear. These stones are actually supposed to be in this landscape area, and they've kicked them all out, dug up the roots from the trees. Tree's not dead yet. Alright, so my phone is literally like the worst phone in the world because I'm at 5% battery life right now, so if it dies, that's why. This is our bottle baby. So that's why she is so happy to see somebody. If you look at what the sheep are eating, that is dry hay. This is dry hay that was wrapped in the John Deere net wrap and stored outside. So when my husband go to feed out the bale, they usually have to have it, and my husband has been increasingly excited as the quantity of these bales that we have outside is getting lower and lower because it is a pain in the butt to peel it off. So this